This is a review of Stranger Things Season 3. Ironically, I think I'm reviewing it in the same not at my house location that I reviewed the first season. How many years ago was that? It was more than 2, I think. Maybe it was just 2. No, I think it was 3 years ago. 3 years ago. It came out when I was gonna be a junior in high school. Summer vacation in the same place. But, anyway, Stranger Things Season 3. I did make a Season 1 video ages ago. I think that's one of the only TV show reviews I've ever done. I didn't do one about Season 2, because Season 2, I'll briefly talk about Season... I don't have a lot to say about Season 2. Ultimately, I didn't have a lot to say about Season 2, because it didn't leave much of an impression on me at all. It was just kind of like, oh, this is well made. Some of it's interesting. I don't dislike it, but I didn't like it enough to talk about it. That's kind of maybe I didn't have much to say. Season 3, I think, I actually do have a lot to say. They did a lot to... Season 1 was great TV. Season 2 was alright TV. Season 3, I thought, was a step not quite to the greatness of Season 1, because Season 1 has the mystery element that you don't know it. It's hard to recreate that mystery element, keep it fresh. That's what Season 1 has, that advantage of being fresh. I feel like Stranger Things is one of those shows where the first season will always be the best, because it was new and it was fresh. But that being said, I thought Season 3 was really solid. A couple things I liked. The main big things that they did. This is going to go into not in-depth spoilers, but like minor spoilers. Some of the major things they did to make it more interesting to me. There was two main things. Instead of involving the shady U.S. government again, it's Russians. It's evil Russians trying to reopen the gate and do stuff with the monsters or whatever. So that made so you had two plot lines in the show that were revolving around finding out what these scary Russians are up to. And then the other thing that they did that made it more interesting was the villain, or the villainy. I guess the Russians count as the villains too. They gave the villains a human element, so there's more going on than just big scary monster versus children. And then even the big scary monster was given a human element, because instead of just straight up like hunting them down, he goes full like body snatcher and like starts possessing different people around the town. And he starts with Billy, the asshole older brother of the girl from Season 2, the younger girl, and then Billy move into town, and Billy's just a complete asshole. I honestly didn't like him. He was one of the things I didn't like about Season 2. I felt like he dwelled into the realm of being like a little cheesy. Like no human is actually, I suppose maybe he was just kind of cartoonishly evil. And the way they solved that in this season was he was pretty much immediately, there was a dumb subplot in the first episode involving Billy that was like kind of funny, but also kind of made me groan. But then it ends and Billy gets nabbed by the Mind Flayer or whatever, and then he becomes like the Mind Flayer's host, and he starts collecting people and taking them to the Mind Flayer, and then they become a part of the Mind Flayer. And so Billy became the human manifestation of the big scary monster. So instead of fighting a big scary monster the whole time, they're figuring out what Billy's up to, fighting Billy, and then eventually fighting the big scary monster when all his sneaky tactics aren't working anymore. It also gives the monster a chance to have some scary dialogue. Like there's one scene where Billy shows up and Eleven's trying to like read Billy's mind or something, and then he shows up in her mind. She thinks she's woken up, and then he shows up in her mind, and he's like, "We're gonna kill you, and we're gonna kill all your friends." And there are a lot of intense scenes in this season. That's the two big plot elements. I already described the two big plot elements that made Season 3 work better for me, but also the style of it was just, I feel like, a step up, almost from anything. Like, this season has the highest body count of any season, easily. Like, I mean, maybe season 2 technically might have had a higher one, or season 1, because there were entire government facilities of people dying, but as far as innocent people that have nothing to do with the situation at hand other than living in Hawkins, easily the highest body count, because all the people that get possessed by the Mind Flayer eventually get absorbed into him in this really grotesque, like, they like melt and then slither into him. It's actually quite, like, I'm surprised it's not like R-rated, because it's kind of gory. It's like hard to watch. There's a lot of really intense scenes, surprising amount of violence, and I mean that doesn't like make a show good, but it's like it made it more interesting, because I don't remember season 1 or season 2 ever being, certainly not season 2, but even season 1 I don't remember ever being that intense. There's a scene where the kids figure out what Billy is. They test him to figure out if he's actually the Mind Flayer, and he just goes ham on them, and that's a scary as hell scene, and that's in like the 4th episode. It's the kind of intense scenes they usually reserve for the last few episodes, but it's in the 4th episode. And then from there, there's more of that throughout it. And that's one subplot the kids are doing with Billy, and I thought that was just interesting, following Billy and figuring out, okay, so what is he doing? What is the Mind Flayer using him for? And then eventually the kids catch on to it. It's crazy how much the kid actors seem to have grown up. Like it's now like a lot of the plot lines that weren't specifically before the kids get fully into the monster fighting. There's a lot of like they're all having like Mike's dating Eleven, and another one of the boys is dating Billy's sister, and so there's like this relationship navigating teen stuff that, I mean, it isn't super engaging, but for the first few episodes it's like solid stuff. There's also a subplot with Steve, who, if you watch the 2nd season, he made friends with Dustin, the curly-haired kid, in like the weirdest, funniest like comedic duo. They make that duo into a trio, and eventually a quartet. I don't know, a quarto. Because Steve is working with this girl named Robin at this ice cream stand, and basically they're the ones that Dustin's weird radio tower thing picks up a Russian transmission, and so they figure out what it means, and they are like sneaking into this Russian base, and that's a super entertaining subplot. I was never bored for a moment during that subplot. If I had one complaint about that subplot, it's probably be that it's almost a little too easy for the kids to get into the Russian base and then out of the Russian base. Like it's not very well. In one scene they lampshade this a little bit. Like basically Hopper and Joyce go to the crazy Russian conspiracy guy, and he's like, no, they capture a Russian, and then they go to the conspiracy guy, and that Russian is like, oh, the gate's in a top secret base that you can never get into, and then they immediately cut to the kids just like driving a forklift into the base or something. So they lampshade it a little bit, but that's like, I can accept that kind of thing. What I really care about is like the writing, the characters, the story, and it's a lot of fun. The only other thing I don't like about that is eventually they get a 4th member, which is one of the guys, what's the black kid's name? Lucas's little sister, and I thought she was obnoxious as hell. I hate little kid characters that inject all of their lines with like 20 pounds of sass and I'm smarter than all the adults attitude. What I was saying about annoying kid characters, that was his little sister to a T. All of her lines were like this. I don't think you do this. I'm like you're a caricature. I don't like you. But she didn't like drag down the whole plotline. If anything, I'd say the weakest storyline is Joyce and Hopper capturing the Russian dude, only because, and I've seen plenty of other people online talk about this, Hopper is so obnoxious in this season. Like, he starts out fairly grounded, like, he's bothered by Eleven and Mike's relationship, he tries to handle it calmly, he fails to handle it calmly, Joyce stands him up on a date, so he's pissed off about that, he's pissed off about Mike. But then, for the rest of the season, like, basically a Russian dude attacks him, and then that spurs their Hopper and Joyce's little trip, and it like they're just like bickering and feuding the whole time, and Hopper's being like an angry asshole the entire time, which would have been fine for like an episode or two, but he never really calms down. He literally like starts beating up the mayor of the town. Like he just goes cuckoo. And I mean that scene was funny. I'm like, oh my god. That's another great that Carrie Elwes is playing this like slimy southern mayor of Hawkins. Give me kind of a George Bush vibe, not like a political statement about George Bush, just like that his mannerisms and the voice he was doing, because he's not, you forget it's Carrie Elwes because he's doing like a Midwest Southern American American accent. He's doing a Midwestern Southern American accent, kind of not like I wouldn't quite describe it as South like Texas, but it's like sort of a country. It sounds like George Bush kind of. It's kind of George Bushy voice. I would not be surprised to find out that he was thinking about George Bush, kind of channeling that into his performance. And this dude's like not George Bush. The character it's revealed he was like worked with the Russians a little bit, so he's like as sleazy as they come, and Hopper just beats him up in one scene. But and that's just crazy. I don't know. But then he keeps being angry and being stupid throughout the whole scene. It's kind of hard to watch until like the last episode or so. And also there's just not that much happening in their storyline. Like everybody else's is moving. Theirs is literally just Joyce is freaked out because magnets are falling off her fridge. She thinks there's some large-scale magnet conductor thing going on. I don't know. I wasn't paying that much attention to that part because it's not that interesting. She gets Hopper to come with her to the old government lab to see if people are still working on stuff there. They get to the lab and he gets attacked by a Russian dude. They hunt him down using the mayor's info and then eventually capture another Russian. Said Russian that beat him up is chasing them down. They go to crazy conspiracy theorist man. They get all the information. They come back, and then they help the group. Like it's basically just like a road trip. It's funny sometimes, but also kind of like pointless and irritating. So I'd say if there was a weak point, that was it. But every other storyline was like a hit for me. Nancy and Jonathan have this news reporter storyline that's kind of cliche. It's like she wants to be taken seriously as a reporter, but she's not. But that doesn't go on for that long before like she gets involved in the bigger picture. And it's like all the characters are just super. I feel like you can tell that the kids have grown up, and like they were already great actors before but like you can tell that they've like matured and their acting ability has matured, and the show's really sweet about how they grow up. The final episode is so I don't know, I was like, it almost made me cry. It was some pretty like heartwarming, like it felt like a season finale, I suppose. That's something I should say. I know they're making a season 4. There was a tease at the end of the finale, but honestly, they should just end the show after season 3. I just don't think there's more story to be told. Like the season 3 finale felt very like final and like, yeah, there's more to the lives of these characters, but the supernatural threat is gone. Time for you to enjoy your teen. It's starting to feel like these characters have just been mercilessly put through the ringer because the show makes money. And from an artistic standpoint, I think it needs to end now, because I don't think there's any way they can top like they found a way to make season 3 feel fresh enough again, but there's no way they can ever top season 1. And like, I'm just not really interested in seeing more like season 4. Season 4. The only way I'd be interested in a season 4 is if it was a pseudo reboot, soft reboot, mostly different characters kind of thing. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be that way. I don't know. There's not much information about it out there, but like I doubt that's what they're going to go with it. It's probably just going to feel like another cash grab. And sometimes you just want to see a show go out when it's at its peak, or like, a peak. Maybe not the peak of peaks, but like on the graph of peaks, one of the peaks. So yeah, Stranger Things Season 3, great season. I'd say if you have the time, if you stopped after Season 1, try to catch up, because Season 3 is genuinely worth watching, and it's not that many episodes, like 8 for each season. But, like, I mean, if you didn't really like Season 1, I'm not going to say it surpasses that at all. It's great. I think it counts as great TV, but I don't think they can make anything even as good as Season 3 ever again, so they really need to stop. Arrivederci!